Welcome to our Saturday Simulcast, brought to you by the Union Club Hotel, joined by Brian Newbert and Tom Dienard. I'm Alan Karpick, and we are every other week, typically this time of year, though there's still it's June. The team competition for all Purdue sports has kind of come to an end, but it's gotten into obviously a busy month in football recruiting. Basketball has started practice. Brian, I'll start with you just on you had a chance to talk to Matt Painter a couple of days ago, I think on Wednesday of this week, or was it Thursday? I'm losing all my days running together here a little bit, but just initial impressions of what the coach had to say in the first day of basketball practice for Matt Painter and company.
Well, there's really not a whole lot to talk about, and that's probably a good thing because you return your team pretty much intact. One of the big I don't want to say questions, but one of the big unknowns is Miles Colvin, who I think has a chance to be a really high impact freshman for Purdue, and they'll give him every opportunity to be. He's not there. He's still out in Colorado Springs. He just made the USA Basketball 19 and under World Cup team. So he's going to miss a lot of the summer with Purdue, which is kind of a double-edged sword, but obviously a great honor for him to make that USA Basketball team. Other than that, I think, Purdue's not going to, quote unquote, reinvent the wheel here with a team that won 29 games last year, won the Big Ten tournament. But I think there'll be some modest tweaking over time. I think the first day of practice for Purdue is always about defense and all that stuff. I think as time goes on, I think they will look at their personnel and what improvements guys have made in terms of what they can do offensively, and perhaps tweak some things along those lines as they go on. But, really it's like the first day of summer practice was like the last day of last season's practice, because you're pretty much the same team, if not better, because I think Lance Jones gives you something you didn't have before. And I think all of these guys are going to get better and better together with experience.
Yeah, one quick follow-up to that. Miles Colvin, obviously really talented guy. One thing that's always good in the summer, you talk about the double-edged sword part, is learning defense, and it's something that any freshman coming into Purdue needs to learn what the expectations are. That's something that maybe that's the negative side of him, if there is such a thing, of him being on the U19 team, is just having the ability to assimilate to that. He'll get a chance, obviously, to go to Europe. But talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, he is getting coached out there with USA Basketball too, so It's not like he's just out there playing pickup games. Tad Boyle and Mike Boynton out there will be the best coaches he's ever been around. And then when he gets to Purdue, obviously, it'll be the most labor-intensive, hands-on, and good, for lack of a better term, coaching that he's ever had in his life, obviously. And how he responds to that's going to go a long way to determining how successful he can be right away. He's the only freshman. So go back a few years ago when Carson Edwards was the only freshman on the team, or the only scholarship freshman. All due respect to Tommy Luce. They always said that he was the guy getting yelled at more than anyone else because he was the only guy out there who didn't know what he was doing, because he was the only guy who wasn't there the season before. And that's going to be Miles Colvin's case here. Lance Jones obviously is a newcomer, but he's got 4 years of college basketball experience under his belt. When Miles Colvin does show up on campus, he's going to be weeks behind everybody else at Purdue. Again, this is a great honor for him. These things don't just happen for people. They're earned for people. They're unbelievable honors. And they make you better. They made Jaden Ivey better. They made, Travion Williams better. Every Purdue guy who's gotten a chance to do something like this has gotten better because of it. But it's a different kind of better. I think, Miles Coleman's understanding of Purdue's system and what, Purdue's going to demand of him is going to be a different thing, a different animal from what USA Basketball is going to coach him to do. Tom's leaving. My answer has been too long. It's but it is going to be a great experience for Miles Colvin, but he's going to have to listen double time when he gets back to Purdue. The good news is he'll get to play some games with Purdue before he ever plays a real college game with Purdue because of the overseas trip.
Yeah, and that'll happen at the end of August. All right, Tom, you obviously had a chance to go to team camp this week. Watch Ryan Walters run a practice. Purdue also got a big football commitment since we've talked last. A couple other guys that have come in and bring us a little bit up to date. First, what your impressions getting to watch Ryan Walters a little bit more in action now over this month? What's been your impression of how he handles himself in those types of situations? I know it's going to be different when he's in front of his team, but a chance to see that as well.
Yeah, anybody who's gotten a glimpse of Coach Walters knows he's got an engaging personality. And just a real quick anecdote, just to sort of draw a contrast between, I think, this staff and Ryan Walters and the previous staff. And don't take this wrong. You can win football games, coach, in a lot of different ways, just different styles. At one camp this week, Ryan Walters, he's got a golf cart he goes around in. He's got a boot on one of his legs. He's had some surgery, so he's not mobile. But he's on his cart driving around. And at one point, you look over and there's a mob of his players around him. And they're almost just laughing, sharing each other's cell phones, showing each other what's on their phone, and just kind of like enjoying the moment there, almost as peers. And I don't think that's something you would have seen in the past. Jeff Braun was I thought more of always an arm's length coach, where Ryan Walters just almost walks among his soldiers, if you will. So that's sort of in one way encapsulated, Ryan Walters as a real ultra players coach, I guess, and hands-on too. I've heard recruits remark to me that at one point during these camps, at one of them, the safeties coach, Grant O'Brien, wasn't there. Coach Walters was out there running the safeties, taking them through their paces and whatnot. So he's obviously not far removed from being an assistant coach. So that's not that for him, but I was going to dive right in with enthusiasm, of course, too. And that sort of goes for the entire staff. It's a young staff for the most part, and a lot of energy there. And again, I've seen that watching these camps the last couple of weeks or so. So, again, they seem to be good instructors. I mean, the proof will be in the pudding once we get to the fall, but everything's roses right now, and they've got a little bit of recruiting momentum. They're trying to put together a nice class here, secure some more commitments this month. And before we know it, guys are going to look up. It'll be August 1st, and they'll be out there going through training camp.
Yeah. When you talk, obviously, June is always a big month, and Brian and Tom both want to review just how different it is, though, than it was even 2 years ago when you're looking at yes, Purdue has 8 or 9 commitments, may expect some more, but I'll go back to you, Brian, just the world of recruiting and how, yes, they may get 5 or 6 more. The Tom has talked about that some, but still it's an ever changing landscape, is it not, down the stretch? What do you expect?
Yeah, especially nowadays. It was a few years back that June kind of became the new December/January. Right. And now it puts an onus on not just your ability to get those guys early, but to hold on to them. And in the transfer era and, some of the other things going on with recruiting, you have to really know who you want early. And then you got to really keep working them to hold on to them. It just feels like everybody's just trading players nowadays. Like everybody's just throwing every player in the country into a big bin, and it's kind of hungry hippos for who gets the most players off the transfer wire. And but it still is important to recruit those high school guys to get the guys you're most certain of early, hang on to them and see what you have. But yeah, it seems so futile though. I mean, taking all these commitments so early when you have the challenge that's always been there in terms of holding on to them, but then also not knowing how your season's going to go not knowing what you're going to need from transfers, not knowing what your scholarship situation is going to look like. There's just going to be more moving parts than ever before. And, football recruiting more than basketball recruiting has been defined, by moving parts for a very, very long time. And now I think it's going to be even more so. I mean, it's not even July yet, and Purdue's already lost 2 commitments, right? I mean, it's the wheel in the sky is already turning, to quote Journey. It's
1980, man. It's about when you were born.
It's going to be eventful. So
yeah. Maybe it was 1978. I don't know.
Yeah, we've got a Journey reference and a Hungry Hippos reference.
Yeah, we're already well into it here. All right, Tom, I because you talked about it when something you wrote this week about, and I don't even know the kid that's committed to Oregon. He's at Purdue's team camp.
State.
Or is it Oregon State? Or
No.
Yeah,
Oregon State.
Was it Oregon State? But anyway, just the fact that they chatting him up.
I think Alan's talking about the kid who was at team camp, and
right.
We're talking about the receiver who flipped from Oregon State.
Yeah, my question was the guy from Oregon that was at team camp. That again, everything. Not that Purdue was trying to flip him there, but I'm just saying you talk to everybody. Anything's possible anymore. Is that strike you?
Why not try to flip him there?
Yeah,
there's no rules.
Yeah,
and no, again, this is a staff that had a lot of connections to this kid. Keone Gray is his name, from Hazelwood Central in suburban Missouri, suburban St. Louis. Again, Ryan Walters, obviously being in Illinois, they recruit the St. Louis area. A lot of his assistants that are on the staff now had recruited the St. Louis area, and even going back to Mizzou as well. So they were on this kid's radar when he was young, I was told. So yeah, they're hopeful maybe they can get the kid to take an official visit. You never know, right? I mean, Brian's been doing this for years, and he understands how these things can be fickle and things can change. You always got to shoot your shot, right? And you got him on your campus, and so that's a great opportunity to continue your sales pitch. And who knows? Who knows? In 2 years, maybe he wants to transfer.
Exactly. Yeah. If I'm a place like Purdue, I'm recruiting all these guys to the very end, because this might not be the only chance you get to recruit them. There's a really good chance some of these really high-end players are available again in 8 months, and there's no harm in having a relationship and having had them on campus so you can hit the ground running when you get another chance to recruit them. That's one of the things where I think a lot of the norms of recruiting, I think, start to crumble. Is that I don't think in football recruiting there's been any sort of rules or code, so to speak, that anyone's ever adhered to, but I think it just makes sense now. It's good business. Mm-hmm. Keep recruiting other people's commitments until the very end, because as I said before, they're all just going into a big bin at some point in time, and everybody's going to be taking their share from that bin, and it's just good business to have a relationship with as many players as you can have a relationship with.
Yeah, no question on that. And I think both coaches, at least men's basketball, Matt Painter and Ryan Walters, have those personalities of, at least what we've seen of Walters do that. Matt Painter is always, you never want to burn a bridge in a guy, and even more, I know Purdue hasn't taken a lot of transfers in basketball, but who knows how long, how that can change over time. All right, another commitment a offer this week, and maybe Brian, a little bit talk. You had team camp this week, but also Trent Burns you wrote a little bit surprising in terms of a guy that they offered for 2024, right? And talk about that, but also anything that you saw in your team camp visit this week in terms of the guys that showed up in Mackey Arena this week.
Yeah, well, there really wasn't a whole lot at the camp yesterday. Jack Benner was there. I've seen him play 1,000 times. Yeah. I didn't see anything different this time than I had before. He's been a little bit streaky shooting the ball this spring and summer thus far, and he's a really good shooter. He just hasn't been making shots, but he's a really good all around offensive player too. So I think there's much more value there beyond just his jump shot. But when he's making shots, he drove that Junior All-Stars win over the Indiana All-Stars in that exhibition game a couple weeks ago with a second half outburst of shooting unlike anything I've seen since Fletcher Lawyer, albeit that was like 18 months ago. So that's not all that long ago, but he definitely is capable. What was the other part you asked me about? Oh, Trent Burns. Yeah. Yes. Purdue is going to be in the market here for its next center before long. You still don't know what you have in Will Berg. He's got to get healthy first and foremost. I think you need another big guy. I think they recruited Raleigh Burgess as a forward more than a center.
Right.
Although I think the way college basketball goes, those big forwards have a funny way of winding up as centers. But I think that between 2024 and 2025, you have the flexibility to get one in either one of those classes. Now, the scholarship numbers are a little bit restrictive here, but, as we know in recruiting nowadays, numbers are but a figment of our imagination. They don't matter. Stuff figures itself out. But I think they found a player that they still haven't seen in person who really impressed them. And, what the hell? I think this is a guy who, nobody's really gotten a really good look at yet. And you see what happened yesterday. He got offered by Purdue, and then all of a sudden he gets offers from Missouri and somebody else. And he already had like Nebraska, Texas A&M, and somebody else. So things are just starting for him. So just because Purdue offered him sort of at the tail end of this long recruiting process with the 2024 class, that doesn't mean he's anywhere near a decision, I wouldn't think. He's going to officially visit Purdue here next week. But then he's going to play July. And once people get a look at him, the possibility exists that he could get a bunch of offers in a very short period of time because he's now on people's radar. Yeah. And, Jeff Brom always used to think that when he offered a quarterback early, everybody was going to offer that quarterback, just kind of piggybacking him because he fancied himself as a really, really advanced recruiter of quarterbacks. And I don't mean that, smugly. But I think, Purdue's reputation with 7-footers, I think when a 7-footer gets offered by Purdue, I think all of a sudden now he's a household name to a lot of people, and people are going to take a really close look at him. And I'd imagine there's going to be a number of people at his first game in July at the Peach Jam. And this could just be beginning, for all we know, at this time, a month from now, this kid could have 25 offers or something like that. That's just the nature of hysterical domino recruiting. I always said if Jaden Ivey hadn't committed to Purdue a couple days before his first EYBL event with his Indy Heat team, he'd have 30 offers off that first. That's probably overstatement. He'd have at least 10 more offers after that first weekend. Purdue was extremely, I don't want to say fortunate because obviously they recruited the hell out of the kid for a year, and that's why he chose Purdue. But if that hadn't happened, things could have gotten really complicated in a very short period of time with all the offers he'd have gotten when people actually saw him.
Yeah, and that is again a little bit of Purdue's MO and Purdue and the landscape of being able to get in early and get guys in and do your job on the front end. All right, Tom, the last part we'll hit on. Obviously, there's a lot of news in the last maybe 10 days, the flex schedule, the Big Ten. Just your impressions. Obviously, Purdue will have Illinois and Indiana on the schedule each year. Interesting that some schools, Penn State being one, doesn't have anybody that's particular is protected. What was your takeaway from that, and how that will make the landscape of the Big Ten football over the next starting in 2024. And then, of course, also USC coming to Purdue. We've learned that too as well. So some scheduling news that's kind of interesting. That's always a talk this time of year.
Yeah, the Flex Protect Plus format, it was called. And like you alluded to, they wanted to try to protect as many rivalries as they could.
Yeah,
I believe they protected 11 of them overall. Like you said, Purdue's got 2 they will play annually, Illinois and Indiana. Penn State's got none.
Yeah.
And I think Iowa, I want to say, has got 3. So, yeah, just some variety there as far as protected rivalries go. But the other goal was to have every other conference opponent play each other at least twice, home and away, over a 4-year period.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how they do that.
Semblance of a rotation of everybody seeing everybody on a semi-regular basis. And yeah, Alan, you talked about the California schools. That's what's really driven this. It's going to be a divisionless conference in 2024. Top 2 teams will go play for the Big Ten championship. Here comes UCLA and USC. USC comes to West Lafayette in 2024 for the first time since 1976. And Purdue goes to UCLA in 25. And guys, that 2025 schedule is the one fraught with a lot of heavy lifting. You've got Ohio State and Michigan, and you've got the UCLA game. You've got Iowa and Minnesota, which are never easy. And there's also a game at Notre Dame that year too. So, yeah, a lot of challenges that year for the Boilermakers, but a lot of excitement too. I think everybody's going to be pumped up to see these California schools hit their campus with some of their tradition. And then, of course, going out to Los Angeles, just a whole new dynamic for the conference as it moves forward here.
Yeah, Purdue, I think, Brian, in 2024 has the least travel mileage because, of course, USC comes to Purdue. That changes the following year when they obviously go out to UCLA. But, Brian, your take on some of this, it's just, again, you have to look at it practically and say, not surprisingly that Indiana and Illinois are on there, but it's probably good in some ways in terms of at least the historic view of the Big Ten that Purdue can hit the ground competitively with those 2 schools. They've beaten Indiana far more times than they've beaten Indiana's beaten Purdue, and Purdue, Illinois has gone pretty much 50-50 in games over the years. But Brian, any other words of wisdom on that, on the schedule and what you saw when that all came out?
Yeah. Purdue's advantage being in the Big Ten West has lied in the fact that not only the fact Nebraska's been down, but Indiana and Illinois, if you took every Big Ten team and you said, which 2 do you want to be locked into every year? I think from a competitive perspective, those are the 2 you'd want. Mm-hmm. So there's an advantage there for Purdue as long as those are the 2 games you get every year. Those are 2, barring anything unforeseen from Indiana or Illinois, where they just take off as programs. They've both had fleeting success over the years. Those are 2 winnable games every single year, obviously, in a Big Ten that's getting, more and more treacherous here. So I think that's a big advantage for Purdue. I'm going to be interested to see, what do they do with the Big Ten title game? I think Kevin Warren wanted to move it around, as was Kevin Warren's way with such events, but is it going to stay in Indy? I know I've heard Detroit as a possibility. Do they want to move more? Do they want to have one out west at some point? Are we going to be in SoFi Stadium here in a few years?
Yeah, I don't know if that's been determined exactly what and obviously with the new commissioner and all that, it'll be interesting to see because Indianapolis obviously has worked out really well from such a perfect city for that type of event.
Yeah,
but
that'd be interesting to start poking around. I'm not sure if they signed a long-term deal with Indianapolis when it expires or how their contract with Indianapolis works. But yeah, if I were to guess, guys, I would think they would move it. I think why not take it to California once? I mean, they made a big deal when Rutgers and Maryland came to at least take that hoop tournament out there to New York and to Washington, D.C., just to show that we live in this part of the country. Right. I'm not sure if they're ever going to go back there, but they at least wanted to do it once. I wouldn't be shocked if that football title game, maybe basketball too, they take their tournament out there. It really seemed weird for basketball. Maybe not basketball, but the football game, I can maybe see it.
Yeah, I mean it's again, and with the expanded playoff and the fact that the playoff is going to be played in home stadiums, there's all this concern about playing games in December in cold weather. Columbus, Ohio, on December the 19th is going to happen someday, just like the NFL does. I mean, it's kind of a silly argument. The NFL plays in Green Bay or wherever if they have to.
But it's only going to be like the first round that are home field.
Right.
So it's just not going to be that they're going to after that. I mean, they're going to go back to the silly bowls and let them host it. And then, would you think the NFL would farm out home playoff games to a neutral site?
Yeah.
Think about that. You get laughed out of the room if you suggest that the NFL, but college football thinks it's okay.
I think the bowl thing is. I would like to have seen it go to at least a second round, to at least the Final Four of football, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be the case. It is going to be interesting to see of those first round games. Of course, that playoff system also begins in 24 or in 24/January of 25. So that will be an interesting thing to watch. Behold. All right. Any last comments? Anything else? Any good movies you've seen? We had a discussion at lunch today about what we're watching on Netflix or not watching. Brian, I'll give you the floor. Anything you want to?
I was just going to say that if you guys think the football scheduling with the two West Coast schools is a cluster, wait till basketball, because it's not just the having midweek games, but it's the US, if there are midweek games, or there'll be weekend games in the Midwest for those schools. What do you think happens when their flight gets delayed because of snow? Stuff they don't have to worry about, from their Pac-12 days. It's just it's going to be a fascinating, beautiful train wreck. And I don't envy the people who are going to have to figure that out. But as far as movies go, I'm kind of between shows right now since Succession and Barry ended. Since the NBA ended. So I don't really have a whole lot for you there. I started White House Plumbers on HBO.
Is it any good?
It's okay. It's interesting. It's just, I don't know if it's necessarily kept my attention the way I kind of need a show to. I'm kind of a spaz. I kind of have the attention span of a gnat. And if you don't catch me right away, you oftentimes don't get a second or third chance. So I watched the first 2 or 3. We'll see if I end up finishing it or not, but that's what I got for you there.
Tom, you were a Barry watcher, of which I haven't watched that yet. But any other ones that you mentioned? Some other ones. Jury Duty.
Yeah, me and Brian were big Barry people, big no-ho Hank fans, and Jury Duty is supposed to be good. I want to see that. This winter I watched a show on Apple called Severance, which is really good. One of the best shows I've seen in a long time. And then The Righteous Gemstones is coming out with, I think it's their 3rd season. I want to say this month. So I guess I'm really looking forward to watching Danny McBride and that old crazy family pick up their story here soon.
Yeah, Danny McBride is the funniest man on television, if you ask me. Like him, Larry David. I'm trying to think of who else. Just can do no wrong.
Yeah. I was glad to see the Curb's coming out. That Larry, at least though it's supposedly going to end this year, but it always is supposedly going to end. So we'll see what happens. He did not die in the pool last year at the end for the Curb watchers, but I'll look forward to that. I would say, as we talked earlier on Paramount, I was a Godfather watcher because my mom must have been hip. She took me that movie when I was 12.
I thought you were going to say your mom was connected.
No, well, that too.
She was a made woman. She was a made woman.
Always one of my biggest fears that I was going to wake up one day and be in the mob, but it hasn't happened yet. No, the one was
actually Connie.
Yeah, yeah. The one scene in Sicily that, if you watch the first Godfather, that probably caught my mom a little bit by surprise at age 12. But it was a good show, and the horse. force it. But I would watch on Paramount. I thought that The Offer, if you are a Godfather watcher, even though there's been some debate of how true all of it is, interesting watch, and well worth your time if you're into that film. I am into it. I had not watched. I went, maybe we'll go back and actually watch The Godfather. Hadn't seen it in a while, but Michael Corleone's still good, man. They're all good. So and Fredo, we just switched. I was amazed that Fredo did not have as big a role. I know he has a huge role in Godfather Part 2, but not all that much in there. But yeah, Fredo did not meet a good end, as did most of those guys in that show. But guys, at the end of the day, that's all we got. So I want to thank the Union Club Hotels. Thank Brian and Tom for chiming in. We'll be back again probably in a couple of weeks, but we appreciate all of you for watching and listening in this mid-June time frame. There'll be a lot more to report on. Keep an eye on the site. More basketball, football recruiting to come certainly throughout the month of June as we get 8 inches closer to the 2023-24 academic and athletic year. So have a great weekend, rest of your weekend, everybody. And thanks for watching and listening. Make sure you subscribe to us also on YouTube. You can like us. You can do whatever it takes. So we appreciate all of you for tuning in, so to speak. So have a great rest of your weekend.
Hey, Father's Day deal.
Oh yeah, Father's Day deal. It's not too late. We are having a special gift offer. Good point. Go to the site there. If you don't have a gift,
goldenblack.com.
Yeah, goldenblack.com. If you don't have a gift yet, we do have a gift program, and it's a heck of a deal. Make sure you check that out. You check it out on Twitter as well, because we'll be promoting that.
It's literally an offer you can't refuse.
Oh man, what a
he's tied it all together. That's perfect. That's why you make the big money, Fredo. So it's perfect. All right, guys.
I can handle things. I'm smart. I'm not dumb. Not like everybody says. I'm smart. And I want respect. There we go.
Yeah, you just don't go out in the middle of the lake with your brother, but that's another story altogether. All right, have a good one, guys.
I think he knew it was coming.
I think he did too.
You can see his kind of eyes drop when the kid gets pulled away, and he kind of understands that this is how it's going to be. And
yeah,
I think he was kind of resigned to it.
That's part 2, my friends. All right, guys. Thanks so much. We'll have a good rest of your week. And on that note, that's all we've got. And we'll look forward to our next Saturday simulcast before long.